Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a countdown for the top 20 best albums of 2025 so far. So we're 6 months into the year. It's July as I'm filming this and we're halfway through the year and I'm curious how all the albums released so far shake out into a list. Now, I've talked about this before. I haven't felt that 2025 has been that strong of a year for album releases. And while that may be true, there's still a lot of great albums that have come out. And those are the ones that I have compiled here into a top 20 for you guys. So we'll get into it here in just a bit, do the full countdown and everything. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it, of course. And as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with a countdown of the top 20 best albums of 2025 so far. So as I said, we're in July here, so we're only halfway through, and it was a bit of a struggle to compile these 20 albums and get them into the right order. So I do know that come December, when I do the full countdown at that time, it's going to be even more difficult. But let's kick off with number 20, Don Airey, Push to the Edge. This came out March 28th, sixth solo album and first in 7 years for him. He's, of course, the Deep Purple keyboard player in the group. And on his previous album, One of a Kind, in 2018, he had then future guitar player for Deep Purple, Simon McBride, who, of course, is now the guitar player. And he reappears on here. So we've got two guys from Deep Purple doing it upright. We've also got Carl Sentence on vocals from Persian Risk and Crocus and Nazareth taking on the vocal position. So a lot of great stuff here. I really enjoyed One of a Kind from 2018. This one here just continued more of it. And now that we've got an album from Deep Purple called Equals One that features Simon McBride, I think the future's really bright for both bands as to where they're going to go. This album, just more of that great stuff and worthy of kicking off our countdown here. Okay, coming in at number 19, we got symphonic metal band Avantasia, Here Be Dragons. This came out on February 28th. It's their 10th studio album from mastermind Tobias Sammet and guitar player and producer Sasha Pirth. The album itself features all the usual guests that you'd expect that he's been doing on previous albums. We got people like Jeff Tate from Queensryche, Michael Kiske from Halloween, Ronnie Atkins from Pretty Maids, Kenny Leckremo from Heat, Bob Catley from Magnum. So all those different artists, plus many others on here, really adding to creating an outstanding affair and an album that I think should be celebrated as part of this countdown. Okay, next, we've got progressive rock band Pattern Seeking Animals coming in at number 18 with Friend of All Creatures. This came out very early in the year. February 14th, it came out, fifth studio album for them, featuring members of Spock's Beard. And Spock's Beard hasn't done anything for a while, basically since this band started up. Not sure why, but we've got Ted Leonard on vocals and guitar, John Bogahold on keyboards and guitar, Dave Moreau on bass, and Jimmy Keegan on drums. And I'm really enjoying this stuff here. I have to say, I think I actually am enjoying Pattern Seeking Animals more than Spock's Beard, as of late at least. Maybe these guys are too, which is why we're getting these albums, fifth studio album in fact, and not another Spock's Beard album. Either way, good stuff for fans of Spock's Beard. Check it out. Okay, coming in at number 17, Blackeyed Suns, Cowboys in Pinstripe Suits, came out January 28th. Debut studio album from three former Choir Boys members. This is basically the Choir Boys minus Spike, right? They had a big falling out. Spike went off and created his own version of the band and has since released an album under that name. This was intended to come out as a new Choir Boys album, but due to some legal issues, and of course, because Spike had his own version, the band decided they should put this out under a different name, let the music stand for itself. They brought in a lot of guests to help out on it. We got Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, Mike Tramp from White Lion, or formerly of White Lion, Chip Snuff from Enough's Enough, and Buck Cherry members are on here as well. So this thing here to me is more like a celebration of everything that came before, but also a start of something new. And it's just a really good album worthy of being in the number 17 position. All right, switching things up here. Coming in at number 16, we got thrash metal band Mean Mistreater, Do or Die. Came out March 21st. Second studio album, so relatively new band. They're a female-fronted group, which is something a little different in the whole thrash metal world. But this is basically for fans of artists like that come out of new wave of British heavy metal that lean towards the hard rock vibe of things. And so it's a really interesting mix of that whole thrash, new wave of British heavy metal, hard rock sound, leaning style stuff. Currently one of my favorite bands that are just getting underway, and I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do throughout their career. This is a great release, and it's put out on Dying Victim Records, who I think is a fantastic label that is showing a light on some of these newer metal bands. So check out not only this, the album called Do or Die from Mean Mistreater, but also check out the record label Dying Victim Records. Coming in at number 15, Billy Idol, Dream Into It, came out on April 25th, 9th studio album. First for him in 11 long years since Kings and Queens of the Underground, which came out in 2014. So obviously a lot riding on an album when you've been waiting 11 years. And, you know, from the first single that came off of this, Still Dancing, the bar was set really high. Arguably one of the best songs Billy Idol has ever recorded, in my opinion, but they put it in the last spot on the album, and I think unfortunately that's hurt the album overall. Basically that and the album sequencing to it. It's a really good album, but there's a few flaws within it. It's got a poor mix in my opinion. I don't really care for the guest vocal spots on it. Billy uses some vocal filters. There's use of electronic drums on here, at the aforementioned sequencing. So if all those things hadn't taken place, I do think this Billy Idol album would have ranked a lot higher in my countdown. But unfortunately, I've lived with it for a few months and it just hasn't moved up since then. Not saying it's a bad album, just isn't one of those ones that is bowling me over. Okay, we've got 90s alternative rockers, Garbage, coming in at 14 with Let All That We Imagine Be the Light. That came out on May 30th, so not that old. 8th studio album, follow-up to 2021's No Gods, No Masters. We've still got all 4 original members of the band, including Butch Vig, Shirley Manson, the two people at the forefront of all of this here. It's a little different than past albums. They've brought in the whole 80s synthwave sound style, mixing it with their 90s era style as well. They've also shifted themes lyrically in here to a bit more optimism, but I think all of that stuff has created something really new and unique, and that in and of itself is what has made this album place where it has and may keep moving it up as the year goes on. All right, coming in at number 13, we have prog rock band Jethro Tull, Curious Ruminant. This came out on March 7th, 24th studio album from the band. They've been on a hot streak lately, releasing albums in 2022 and 2023. This was actually due in 2024, but it got pushed back a little bit. Either way, they hadn't released anything in a good 20 years when they started dropping albums in 2022. So that's why I say they're back on a hot streak, and each album that has come out since then has been really, really good. It's like they've gotten a second wind. This album is just showing that they're doing more of that great stuff. And even though we've got a new lineup and new guys, Ian Anderson still at the helm, still doing it right, making for a great progressive rock album. All right, coming in at number 12, melodic metal band, the Fairymen, Iron Will. This came out January 24th, fourth studio album from the trio that is Ronnie Romero on vocals. He's played with Rainbow and Sunstorm, Magnus Carlson on guitars from Primal Fear and Free Fall, and Mike Tirana on drums from Rage and Axel Rudy Pell Band. But all of this really good. If you know the bands that I mentioned that these guys come from, that's going to tell you what to expect as far as the music on this album and the quality of it too. But it's an outstanding album either way. Totally worth checking out. Glad to have it in my number 12 position, and we'll have to wait and see if it keeps moving up because it's been growing and growing on me ever since. Much like this next one here, Swedish rock band Heat, coming in at number 11, Welcome to the Future, came out on April 25th, their 8th studio album, follow-up to the reunion album Force Majeure from 2022, which saw the original lead vocalist Kenny Leckremo return. Remember, he was guesting on Avantasia. Here's the band that he is from. And the band got most of its notoriety, at least for me, and I know a lot of other people, when Eric Gronwall, who was the singer at the time, left to join Skid Row. That made me take note of these guys. I had not really paid much attention to them before, but all of a sudden I kept hearing Eric Gronwall, former singer of Heat, and it made me take note. I've got to say, with Kenny Leckremo coming back in, I am really liking what these guys are doing. I do have a couple of the albums with Eric on vocals, but this new one here is blowing my mind. It is really something good. If you like 80s throwback albums, this here being a mix of like Journey and Def Leppard, you're going to really like Heat, and I recommend this album. All right, we're halfway through, coming in, and the 10th spot here, we've got the King of Sleaze himself, Jizzy Pearl, and Love Hate Punk Rock Fiesta. This came out on March 1st, 8th studio album and second under the name of Jizzy Pearl's Love Hate. So the lineup for this being Jizzy Pearl on vocals, we've got Darren Householder on guitar, who is the guitarist on their 1993 album Let's Rumble. And then we've got two other guys that are newer members, Christian Kismet on bass and Charles Evans on drums. But this is much of what you'd expect from Jizzy Pearl. The guy may be 67 years old, but he sounds down and dirty as ever. Just what you would want from a king of sleaze rock. And Darren is on fire, ripping it up, playing his heart out on here, lighting this album up, really helping to just elevate the quality of this all the way through. And so this thing just builds on the dirty, sleazy sounds of Love Hate's heyday. The entire album is a welcome addition to their catalog, in my opinion, and worthy that you guys should check it out too. All right, next up, staying on the glam metal thing, we've got LA Guns Leopard Skin coming in at number 9. This came out on April 4th, 15th studio album and 5th since the reuniting of Phil and Tracy, the two key guys in the band. And this one here has most in common with Hollywood Vampires album of 1991, Man in the Moon in 2001, and Checkered Past in 2021, which is kind of an interesting thing that they were each a decade apart, but I just heard so much of those albums within this one here. And I think if any of those albums speak to you, it's time to check this one out because it's got the band branching out, trying new things, but at the same time staying fresh, fun, and all the different sort of stuff, the hallmarks of the production levels and everything from those albums, which is why my mind went to those albums when hearing this sort of stuff. But all very good stuff, and again, worth checking out. All right, we're going to switch gears here and move over to space rock pioneers Hawkwind, where their album There Is No Space for Us comes in at number 8. This came out on April 18th, 37th studio album from these guys. There's 8 tracks on here. The band may have formed back in 1969, and we still have mastermind Dave Brock at the helm. But this album sounds as fresh and rejuvenated as I've ever heard the band. They too have been on a resurgence, much like Jethro Tull, seemingly putting out a new album every year for at least the last decade. But this one here caught my ears like none of their other ones have, and I've just really enjoyed the whole synthwave vibe and sound of this album. As I said, sounding very fresh, adding into that resurgence that the band has been going through. Okay, coming in at number 7, Speaker Wars, self-titled release coming out on May 30th. Debut studio album that features former Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers drummer Stan Lynch, but he is so much more than just a drummer. He used to co-write songs. He's a producer. He's worked with Don Henley, the Eagles, and a number of other different artists, and he surrounded himself with a bunch of Nashville guys. And I myself know that I've been missing, there's been a void ever since Tom Petty passed, and so I looked to Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs and really enjoyed that. And this album here doing much of the same of that. So if you feel like there's a void that needs to be filled, then definitely check out Mike Campbell if you haven't already. But check out the Speaker Wars because it's doing much of the same style stuff. I think this album here, which initially when I heard it didn't do as much for me, has really grown on me with every listen, to where this thing here moved from not even being in my top 20 to now being at number 7, and who knows where it'll go from there by the end of the year. All right, this one here you guys already know that I think really highly of. I think the rest of the albums in here you've heard me talk lots and lots about, so probably not a big surprise of the ones you're going to see going forward. But this one here, entering where it did right from the get-go, we'll see if it holds on until the end. So coming in at number 6, Little Feat, Strike Up the Band. This came out on May 9th, their 18th studio album and follow-up to Sam's Place in 2024, which was a blues album, but their first album in 12 years since Rooster Rag. Now, unlike Sam's Place, this one here sounds more like a standard Little Feat album. Sam's Place had Sam Clayton singing, who has been in the band for a really long time, but his vocal style is not really my cup of tea. It fit the blues album very well, but would not have fit very well on this here. So this one here has a variety of the guys singing on it, and one of the newer members, Scott Sherrard, who took over for Paul Barry, who had been in the band since '72, but unfortunately has passed away, I think is really doing a strong showing and helping to continue the legacy. And Bill Payne, the keyboard player, one of the founding members of the group, said that this album is a lot like their 1988 album, Let It Roll, which was a similar album to reintroduce the band. And I think that's exactly what this album has done. After the last album, which was their first one back in quite some time, but was a bit of a left turn, this one here needs to reintroduce the fans to the band as to who they are. And that's what this is doing, making for a fantastic album. All right, coming in at number 5, we have Swedish AOR melodic rock band and synth heavy band at that, the Nightflight Orchestra, Give Us the Moon. It came out on January 31st, 7th studio album. The band formed in 2007 from some unlikely members that don't normally play this style of music. We've got guys from Soilwork, which is a melodic death metal band, Bjorn Strand and David Anderson. And then you've got Arch Enemy, another melodic death metal band, Charlie D'Angelo on bass. So those guys coming together to do something that's very, very different. And while I don't care for those other bands, I found myself really, really enjoying what they do over here. And so this stuff sounds like a throwback to the 80s. It's even got an underlying dance and funk and disco grooves to this thing, which I think makes it even better. But you mix all that stuff together, it puts it right in my wheelhouse, and I think is a very strong contender for moving up as the year goes on. Okay, coming in at number 4, Swedish hard rock band, the Helicopters, Overdriver. This came out on January 31st, so between Nightflight Orchestra and this one coming out on the same day, it was a big day to say the least. 9th studio album from the Helicopters, follow-up to the reunion album of Eyes of Oblivion from 2022. This one celebrates their 30th anniversary, and what better way to do it than to put out brand new material? So Nicky Anderson at the helm on vocals and guitar, but this is a guy similar to Nightflight Orchestra that does things different outside of it. So he's a drummer in a doom metal band, Lucifer. He's a drummer for a death metal band, Entombed, the singer and guitar player in a soul band called Solution, and the singer and a guitar player in a straight up rock group, the Imperial State Electric. But this is my favorite thing that he does here. So all in all around, fantastic rock album. This thing here is a fantastic garage rock revival. That's kind of what they're known as. So a little different than the straight up rock sounds, but in terms of garage rock, this album here initially thought maybe could be number one, hasn't held it. We'll see if it regains it by the end of the year, but a fantastic album. So here we are at the top three albums so far of 2025. And this one here is steadily moved up as well. I'm talking about Heartland rocker John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, Sound of Waves, which comes in at number 3. The album itself came out on April 11th. And so we've got, this is the third studio album under their name, and first in 37 years since Roadhouse back in 1988. So a long time coming, something I never thought I would see, but it's because the band is also better known for their soundtrack albums like Eddie and the Cruisers in '83, which had the number 7 Billboard hit out on the Dark Side, and then Eddie and the Cruisers 2 in '89. Plus they contributed music to movies like Rocky 4 and Cobra. But this album here is everything you would want from the band. They've lost nothing in their step. 36 years on, this is amazing. The opening song, Palisades, on this picks up right where they left off. I feel like I'm back in 1985 all over again. And they still have 3 original members, John Cafferty on vocals and guitar, Gary Gamali on guitar, and Michael Atunes on saxophone. So those 3 guys rounded out by 2 or 3 other guys, and still continuing on that great legacy of the Beaver Brown Band. Now this one here was a total shock, and it moved right up the chart upon its release. So coming in at number 2, Styx, Circling from Above, coming out on May 30th, but won't make a full worldwide release or, broader release until July 18th, but you can already go and get it on the band's website, so I am including it here. It's their 18th studio album. First to feature 2 new members in the lineup, Will Ivankovich and Terry Gowan. It is a concept album. Again, it exploits the intersection between technology and nature. So it's built around an avian theme of flight, birds, satellites, etc. Amazing standout songs on here. First single, if you haven't already heard it, Build and Destroy, is so good. But the song Michigan and King of Love is really good. First half of the album, super strong. It falls off a little bit after that, so not as great. And there's a couple songs on here that I could really kind of do without, and that's about the only reason this album is not taking the top spot, but you never know what's going to happen. This album, which is a very good album, could overtake the first one. We'll have to wait and see. But who is at number 1 so far? Well, the Macabre Rockers' Ghost, Skelea, coming in at number 1. This came out on April 25th, their 6th studio album. We got 10 new songs from Mastermind Tobias Forge, who has his new alternate ego in here, Papify Perpetua, the Anti-Pope. So this one here, maybe more than any of their other albums, is got a very decidedly 80s feel to it. It's got classic layered production like Def Leppard, and amazing lead guitar work like I've not heard on any of their other albums. Check out the song Misilia Amore, number 7, which is also known as Love Rockets. That one in and of itself will tell you all you need to know about this great album, but that one is held strong in my head. And so will this album hold up all the way through to the end of the year? Is there any other album that could drop between now and the end of the year to take over it? We'll have to wait and see, but right now, your number 1 album of 2025 so far, Ghost, Skelea. So there you go. That's my top 20 best albums of 2025 so far. But what is your favorite album of 2025 so far? And will it hold up until the end of the year? We'll all have to wait and see. I'm still praying that there's some albums getting ready to be announced that we know nothing about that'll really shake things up for 2025 and right the ship, so to speak. As I said, I don't feel that it's been a very strong year yet, though those 20 albums are all fantastic and worthy of checking out. So if there's any on there that you hadn't heard of, go check them out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. All right, everyone, at least until December when I do this again and I do the final year-end countdown, have a good one, and I'll talk to you through the other videos. Bye-bye.